Welcome to the Kitsap Matters podcast. In each episode, we discuss the people, places, and things that make Kitsap County unique, covering local entertainment, restaurants, business, government, and anything else we find interesting, troubling, or just plain amusing. This is a community-focused podcast, but sometimes financial topics do arise, and since the host is a licensed financial professional, we have to include the following disclosure in every episode. The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it's in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Kevin Campbell is an investment advisor representative of and advisory services offered through USA Financial Securities, a registered investment advisor located at 6020 East Fulton Street, Ada, Michigan, 49301. Peaks Financial is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities. All right, welcome back to Kitsap Matters, where we bring you the conversations that shape our community and beyond. Today, I'm honored to introduce a guest whose story is as inspiring as his impact on the media world. Terry Ward, CEO and co-founder of Ward Media, is a true testament to resilience, vision, and the power of storytelling. Terry has dedicated his career to revitalizing local news, fostering community engagement, and mentoring the next generation of journalists. His latest venture, Ward Media, is setting new standards in local journalism, including the launch of Kitsap Business Magazine. Terry, welcome to the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, I'm excited to learn more about the magazine. Obviously, I just found out about it recently when the first edition came out. But so tell us a little bit about your journey. What led you to running Ward Media, and get a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, Ward Media has kind of been a vision of mine for a long time. I worked for a lot of other media companies, worked for one of the largest media companies in the U.S., and then worked for the largest local media company in the state of Washington. And as part of that, I left in August of 23 with my partner, Amy Yaley, and we decided we were going to launch our own media company, and we purchased some newspapers over in North Central Washington, a business journal, launched a promotional product company and a digital marketing agency all about that time. And the whole time we've lived here in Kitsap, here in Fullsball. And so when we launched Ward Media, we decided we're right here in our backyard. Let's launch Kitsap Business Magazine because we're here most of the time.
Awesome. So what's something people might not know about the story behind Kitsap Business Magazine? And I'm guessing a lot of people don't even know about it, right? Because it just launched. Literally, just put out the first edition. Second edition's gone to print right now. So what might people not know about it? What's the focus of the magazine? What do you think people need to know about it?
You know, the focus of the magazine, it is something I describe it as a passion project. For quite some time, I saw a gap in the local business news here on the Kitsap Peninsula, right, including Bainbridge Island. And as we looked at it, we wanted to launch something that we felt the business community would be proud of, and it's really about storytelling and focusing on the folks that are making a difference in their entrepreneurial journey across the area. We're going to do the typical news things that you see, this person moved here and there with the changing faces, changing places. If something big happens, a new shopping mall opens up or a new store opens, we'll cover that both mostly online, some in print. And then the print product is going to be really focused, and it is right now, focused on the feature stories. You look at the first edition that we did, talked about Peter Crabtree and his chocolate company and really doing social good from something that happened negatively with his business, with the sexual harassment issue that he ran into. And instead of hiding it, he decided he was going to do something positive and try to change the industry. And those are the stories that are inspiring, and they're the stories that we really want to tell to the Kitsap community at large. And so when we focus on that, we think that there's a lot of great stories out there that aren't being told. There's some businesses that everybody knows what's going on because they're great about promoting themselves. But then there are folks that are doing good work, but hardly ever get the accolades for it. And we want to feature those type of people as well. And then as well as nonprofits. We believe that nonprofits are huge economic drivers in communities. And so we're really focused on trying to help them do good and amplify their voice in the community so people know all of the great work that they're doing.
It's interesting. As you were saying that, what was going through my mind is that in this day and age where information and what's often purported as news, which really isn't necessarily, but it's like we're inundated with media and information, but a lot of it doesn't have any meat, right? It's like it's sound bites instead of actual stories. So this will be really cool to see and hear more about the businesses that are taking in Kitsap County. When I heard about the magazine, I was like, oh, this is perfect to have you on the podcast, because obviously our mission here is very similar, right? We're trying to bring out what's going on in Kitsap County and spreading the word. So as obviously,
can I jump in there real quick?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
mentioned sound bites, right? It really, sound bites have become clickbait, right?
Totally.
If you can get a rush out of folks and a rise out of people online or in social media, folks have started to view that as journalism, and it's not journalism. All they're trying to do is enrage people so they get more traffic, which, because of Google and Facebook and these large digital platforms, traffic equates revenue, but it's doing nothing for the media literacy as a whole.
Sure, absolutely. So speaking of the Kitsap business community, what comes to mind? Like, how would you describe the Kitsap business community? It seems to me like it's thriving. What do you think what do you see as the future in Kitsap business? What do you see as trends?
Yeah, so when I look at the Kitsap business community, you're right, it is thriving. I think it has a ways to go, and I think it's amplifying the voice from a greater reach, right? Seattle gets a lot of the play in the publicity of what's going on. And rightly so, because there's some big economic drivers for the region there. But economic development is a regional play. And so when you look at Kitsap as a whole, what happens in Poulsbo is going to affect Bremerton and Silverdale and Port Orchard and Bainbridge Island and likewise. And so if we can tell more of those stories that connect communities together instead of them being isolated, I think it has a greater push. And so when I think about what's making it thrive, you've got great organizations like the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. They're doing some great work. You've got the Greater Kitsap Chamber, all the different chambers working in conjunction. I think it's no accident that Kitsap has the fan zone coming with FIFA, with the World Cup coming up, because people are starting to notice that Kitsap is a place to do business in it. It's a place that has a strong future ahead of it.
So now I know that the Ward Media and this particular magazine is new, or a couple of years, or I think you said you started in 2023, something like that. But having been in the same space here in Kitsap County for a long time, you've obviously had kind of a front row seat to the evolution of business in our region. So what are some of the most significant changes that you've seen in the Kitsap business landscape for, like, say, the last decade? What's occurring here now compared to what it was 10 years ago?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think, when we look at it, we look at the population growth, right? That's playing a role. I think the downside to the pandemic was the thought process of businesses shutting down, but the aftermath that's really helped the economy here in Kitsap is folks that have been able to work remotely. Mm-hmm. Maybe they chose to relocate their business here to Kitsap, right? After that, because they wanted more of a quality of life than other things. So when we look at Kitsap, I think it's that balance between the natural side of the Puget Sound and the thriving business community, right? It's more connections with your local community and less commute, right? Yeah, it's getting bad in some places, especially Gorse and some of that's always bad. I think that's the Department of Defense that you run into with that traffic coming into the shipyards. But when you look at Kitsap as a whole, I came in 2015. And when I came to the state of Washington, first thing I said was, Poulsbo is the place that I want to be. That's where I want to live, because of it seemed quaint. It was close enough to the ferries, close enough for commuting. But what I've seen recently is more and more people are starting to relocate to the area because they're finding that way of life is important. Mm-hmm. And that way of life, happy employees make profitable businesses. And if you have employees who are happy where they live, happy where they're rooted, and start to plant roots in that local community, the business will thrive as well.
It's interesting you say that, because we pre-pandemic we had an office on Bainbridge Island and one in Seattle, and I spent every other week bouncing back and forth. I would spend 1 week in one office, 1 week in the other, 1 week in one office, 1 week in the other. And as the pandemic happened, we ended up like many businesses actually closing our physical locations because we weren't able to use them. Leases were up on both facilities, so we just shut them down and then reopened up after the pandemic. And when we reopened, we chose to do so in Poulsbo. And we've talked a couple times about, are we going to go back to Seattle? And we're kind of like, yeah, I don't think so.
The trade-offs are too great.
Right, it is. As much as it is, the ferry system has gotten much more challenging, things like that. It's just not, that commute across the Sound isn't quite as fun as it used to be.
I hear you.
So what role do you think, and do you hope that the Kitsap Business Magazine plays in shaping the local economy and entrepreneurial culture within the county?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the networking, the partnerships, right, and taking a look at it, right. There's a lot of folks doing a lot of great work in the entrepreneurial space. You look at what Alana Embach is doing over at Vibe Works and the Master Labs, and partnering with Kitsap Bank and some of the other organizations in the area in Kita. That's going to continue to help the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kitsap. And what we want to be able to do is tag onto that and help amplify those stories and talk about what's going and connect folks with people that are doing the positive things, right? I see us down the road taking more of a leadership role in recognizing that, right? Whether it's an awards type ceremony. There are a lot of those going on in Kitsap, but they tend to be very isolated based on region. And I want to pull those together and look at who are the effective leaders in the community and how can we help recognize those folks, because sometimes the best leaders in the communities aren't the people that are getting most of the publicity. They're quietly doing the work, and they're leading from right beside their team and leading from their business and other businesses in those communities. We want to continue to elevate their voices and amplify the work that they're doing as well.
Excellent. So how do you decide what businesses or stories to feature? Like what makes a Kitsap business stand out?
Any feature story has to have a hook to it, right? It's funny, when we first announced that we were launching the magazine, and we announced that here's the cover, and we started pushing some things out on social media. I started getting folks reaching out saying, hey, I would be a great person for your cover, or I have a great story to tell. And while they might, part of the vetting process that I do is I want to set up an interview with them and talk to them for about 15 minutes. Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey. Tell me what got you from A to B, and what's that inspiring side of that story to make a feature story. We're going to do a lot of stories on businesses and people. It may not end up in the glossy magazine. They might end up on our website.
Sure.
Right? But the ones for the magazine, that should be the things that are going to inspire the next wave of entrepreneurs or the next nonprofits that are really trying to do some great things. We want that to be more of an inspirational outlet. And so that's really what it comes down to, is that inspirational side and the entrepreneurial journey, and how are they making Kitsap County a better place to live and work.
I love something you just said about bringing up the next generation of entrepreneurs. As you think about it and you listen to conversations that people have, that's not something people talk about a lot about, right? When people are talking to young people about, hey, what do your future? Very rarely do they say, hey, you should become an entrepreneur, right? It's you should be a doctor, attorney, a whatever, some type of professional, and go to work and get a job and that kind of thing. Instead of and very rarely is the conversation of being an entrepreneur. And it's interesting, as I talk to other entrepreneurs, most of us ended up this way one way or another, right? We didn't start off going, hey, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. It is not for the faint of heart. I've heard the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who has absolutely no concept of the odds against them.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a great way of saying it.
It's rooted in hope.
Right? Yes, it is. Absolutely. I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years now. At this point, I think I'm completely unemployable. Nobody in their right mind would ever hire me because I've been off the reservation way too long. So, as a business owner yourself, what are and obviously in a relatively new business as well, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities you see for small and mid-sized companies in the area?
Yeah, I think the challenges, it's always comes down to regulation. I think it's always the challenges, the tax system, the state RCWs, all of those, I think, depending on what the industry is, can be challenging for folks to jump in with both feet. I think what a new entrepreneur really needs to look for is they need to find a mentor.
Right. Absolutely.
Somebody who can coach them. And then while they're being mentored, they also need to be mentoring somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's an important aspect that's often overlooked, is we have these great ideas and we think that we know what we're doing in the chart and push forward with that course that we're we're heading down. And oftentimes, if you have somebody who you can just bounce ideas off, bounce thoughts off, it'll become a lot easier for you in the long run, because maybe somebody has already taken the journey that you're walking down, and they can help guide you so you don't hit some roadblocks.
Yeah. Very true words. Very true words. I've mentored people, and I've been mentored, and the journey that I've been on wouldn't be the same without those people.
Yeah.
There's a couple that I can think of off the top of my head that I actually still reach out to every now and again and just say, hey, just thinking of you and thank you.
That's important.
It is.
It really is. It's important that we stay connected with folks. And, I think a lot of people understand what networking is about, right? And they view networking as kind of how can I better my business and get more business by networking? I think often networking and connecting with others really should be rooted in how can I, one, learn from this individual?
Mm-hmm.
What type of wisdom can they impart in my journey? And then how can I then help better everyone around me through that networking process?
Yeah.
It's not just about handing out your business card
Right.
and hoping somebody does business with you,
Yep.
right? It's having those conversations that are meaningful and lasting.
Yeah. How do I communicate? How do I contribute to my community?
Exactly.
And it's interesting. I've always kind of viewed business as, if I'm doing good things for good people, the rewards will come.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's be part of the community. So obviously you're in both the digital and print world, and those are evolving worlds these days. Tell me how does that impact you as a magazine? As far as how do you balance that? Are you seeing something I think is interesting? Is I tend to be seeing kind of a shift back in some cases, back to print in some cases, because the digital world has gotten so noisy.
It comes down to credibility.
Yeah.
Right. I think print media it still has a long shelf life ahead of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's become more of a niche media now, where folks, they want to be able to hold that tangible product.
Right.
When we print something in one of our newspapers over in North Central Washington, or we print something in Kitsap Business Magazine here, someone can wave that back in my face later and say, you got it right or you got it wrong. You need to do a correction or you don't. If I do digital media, like many do, you can change that tomorrow. You can take that article down. It doesn't last. There's a reason why, if you go to any historical society, one of the best resources they have are old clippings of print media.
Yeah, actual newspapers.
Because it lasts, and it's a chronicling of the history. So when I look at Kitsap Business Magazine, I hope in the future it's looked back on as a chronicling of the business community and what's happened here on the Kitsap.
That's very cool. I have not thought of it that way. So how can local leaders and business owners work together to elevate Kitsap's regional influence?
I think, like I said earlier, economic development is a regional play, right? And it's working together and putting aside the competitive nature of some of the communities, right? We have a lot of Chamber of Commerces in Kitsap. They do a lot of good work together, but sometimes it gets a little bit territorial because they're membership-based organizations.
Sure.
And then you run into businesses that, are very similar, right? The media landscape in Kitsap is a crowded media landscape, right? There's my former employer that has several newspapers here in this area. There's another newspaper in the area, the Kitsap Sun. You've got numerous magazines throughout the region. And I think the key is there's going to have to come a point where we can all begin to help coordinate and work together, because we don't have to compete with one another. Financial advisors don't have to compete with one another, right? It's all about making sure that we're pulling the boat in the same direction. And that will help elevate Kitsap County. It's getting the word out. It's making sure that when we attend a conference outside of the region, which many of us do, it's talking about what a great place Kitsap is to do business and what a connected place it is. And that, look at us, we're all pulling together to accomplish the same goal.
Awesome. So, all right. Now, I know I gave you the questions earlier, and I don't know if you had
briefly looked at them. Yeah.
Right. So here's one that might be a little bit of a curveball for you. So if Kitsap had its own version of Shark Tank, who would be your dream panel of local sharks?
That is you gave me the questions about 2 minutes before we started recording.
I was like, I should probably sent you this earlier.
That one is a great question, right? You want to be able.
There's a lot of local industry leaders for sure. There's people that are everywhere.
You want to look at folks that are really going to understand the local economy, and they want to understand what makes a good business idea and how to help nurture and coach, right? Shark Tank is one of those iconic shows where they deliver tough love, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
love
for sure.
watching it because sometimes they're really hard on those folks, but they're hard on those folks for a reason. And so Alana would absolutely be one, because she works in that entrepreneurial ecosystem and moving forward there. When I think about other folks in the area, man, that is a difficult question, because you
right. I did kind of throw you in front of the bus on that one.
Yeah, you did, because there's some folks. I'm trying to think who's the most straightforward, direct, borderline jerk in the county, and I don't want to say those names because that person would be the Mr. Wonderful off of the Shark Tank, right? You want to have those kind of folks.
Well, when you just mentioned that a minute ago, I actually just saw a clip last night of Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, just ripping somebody, right? And from a standpoint of, hey, you're about to screw up, you're about to get your lunch eaten, and you're about to make some very bad mistakes, and it was some serious tough love.
It's pretty ruthless when you think about it. But there are folks. I mean, narrowing down the three would be difficult, right? Because there's Chad Melton at St. Michael's Medical Center. I mean, he really understands that system and runs a good business with its own challenges, because healthcare is difficult. Marty at the college, right? You look at all of these kind of folks and what they're doing. While they're not necessarily running their own business, they're running some very successful organizations that are having a huge economic impact in this. And then if you get down in the South Kitsap, right there's a lot of folks, right? I mean, you look at the number of realtors in our area, whether it's Tom Ernest or folks like that, they would be good because they understand that what it takes to keep a business going in a challenging market environment, right? The housing market in Kitsap has its challenges. There's no question about it. That there's not enough housing. The prices are continuing to increase, and with that low inventory and high interest rates, those folks being able to really make a mark in their business is huge. I can just think of folks like that would make a lot of sense. I think the only clear answer I have for you would be Alana, because she mentors and works with those folks every day. Alana,
she definitely has the pulse of what's going on in the community.
She's definitely Wonder Woman of Kitsap,
right?
Yeah.
So imagine you had to write a headline 10 years from now about the local Kitsap business scene. What would you want it to say?
Kitsap continues to thrive after a 10-year run. It's continuing to grow, continuing to evolve. I think about that headline, but there's way more to it than just the headline, right? It's the subhead of what the driving factors. Industry is continuing to boom. It's not solely dependent upon the Department of Defense and what's going on with Bangor and naval base.
Which is a lot of a huge chunk of our local economy is the DoD.
It is. It's huge, but in order to support those families that come in and do all those type of things, you have to have a thriving business community. So my hope or my dream would be that the headline would reflect the continued growth without losing the identity of what makes Kitsap special.
That would be a great thing, because that's always the challenge, right? Is as we're sitting here talking about promoting Kitsap and driving business in Kitsap and all the wonderful things that go on here. At the same time, it's also kind of like, shh, don't tell anybody, right? So on one side, we want growth, we want to thrive, we want growth. But this other side is we don't want it to get too crowded.
Exactly. Keep it secret, but not too secret.
Right, exactly. So it's a little bit of a balancing act there. So what is a business idea, or an idea you wish someone would launch in Kitsap, but hasn't yet?
That's a great question. I mean, you would ask me 6 months ago, I would say a business magazine, right? But here we are, right? I think that I don't know where I'd launch it. Right. If there was,
I got a couple of projects I'm thinking about, but I'm not going to say it on the podcast right now.
I have some ideas too, and I don't want to throw that out there, right?
Exactly.
My partner Amy gets very frustrated with me from time to time because I'll be talking, I'll be, I've got some ideas, and she goes, you're making my stomach hurt, right? Because of the amount of ideas. And I think when you have that entrepreneurial mind, you're always thinking of ideas. And I often will have a lot of ideas, and I kind of keep them to myself so that somebody else doesn't jump in and do it before I do it. they might do it better if I let them, but give me a chance first.
Right. Yeah. I'm laughing too because just yesterday on one of our staff meeting calls, I was getting grief from the team because they were saying, "Oh yeah, wait till you see him go away for a couple of days," and that's when he comes back going, "I have an idea,"
Yeah.
right? And everybody runs.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. The most feared words coming from an entrepreneur. I have an idea. So for those listening who want to support or get involved with the business magazine, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We have several ways of doing that. Right. But the easiest way to connect with us is simple email address, news@kitsapbusiness.com. If you want advertising information, we will route that to the proper place that it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or you can, if you want to, pitch a story, you can send it there as well. We do have the website, kitsapbusiness.com.
Okay, perfect.
People can go there. It's got all of the news and feature stories that we have out for our first edition, and we'll be populating soon for our second edition on there as well for the monthly magazine. And then there's contact information there. There's information about our team and who to reach out to for the proper area. But the easiest way is just a simple news@kitsapbusiness.com.
Awesome. So what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur just getting started in Kitsap?
Don't quit, right?
Tenacity.
It's going
one thing an entrepreneur has to have is tenacity.
Yeah, it's going to be challenging, but don't quit. Good ideas don't happen overnight. And it does come down to, I think I said earlier that, it's rooted in hope, and it's rooted in the foundation of hope of being able to look at things that are not yet seen, right? Just because you might be struggling in your first month, your 6th month, your 12th month, your 18th month, doesn't mean that if you continue to push forward, make wise decisions, bounce ideas off of people who have taken that journey before you, that it doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. An entrepreneurial journey isn't a straight line. Yep. There's a lot of weaves and curves.
It's more like a moth.
Process. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You're headed in the right direction, but there's a lot of turns and twists to get there, and it's finding that right balance is going to make a difference for a new entrepreneur.
Awesome. So last question, we always ask this one of everybody on the podcast, is what's the best kept secret in Kitsap County? It could be a restaurant, it could be a business, it could be a hike, it could be a view, it could be a group, it can be anything.
Best kept
secret. Something that you really enjoy that a lot of people might not know.
When I think about the area up by Hansville, I think a lot of folks, especially people coming to Kitsap, right? They look at Bainbridge Island, they look at some of the areas, but when you go up in the Hansville area, you can hike down to the beach, and it's a short hike, and they're usually pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And you get a great view, you get some great shell hunting and things like that. I think that's a great secret. Before I got so busy, I would take my kids there.
North end of the county up there. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to take your kids. They can splash around. They can look at for some shells and things like that. And when my kids were a little younger, that's what we used to do quite regularly.
Awesome. Okay, wonderful. Anything else any other thoughts before we wrap up for the day? Anything else you want to share?
Not particularly. I just want to encourage people that, Kitsap Business Magazine, pick up a copy, take a look at the website, give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. When you're launching a new product like that, you want to know if it's resonating with the business community. And let us know if you have a story idea, tip, changing faces, changing places, promotions, awards. Those are the things that are really going to make it successful if we're a voice of the community and not just sitting in an office trying to think of ideas and let people feed us those ideas.
Yeah, right. Awesome. Okay. Terry Ward, Kitsap Business Magazine. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time on Kitsap Matters. This is a community-focused podcast, but sometimes financial topics do arise. And since the host is a licensed financial professional, we have to include the following disclosure in every episode. The strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it's in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Kevin Campbell is an investment advisor representative of and advisory services offered through USA Financial Securities, a registered investment advisor located at 6020 East Fulton Street, Ada, Michigan, 49301. Peaks Financial is not affiliated with USA Financial Securities.